Going.
Hello, my name is Fran Yett, and I'm here to do my informational speech for Communications 101 class. Maria Shriver was speaking about Alzheimer's disease one day and said something that has really stuck with me. She said that when you have met one person with Alzheimer's disease, you have met one person with Alzheimer's disease. Now I admit that sounds a little strange, but her point was that Alzheimer's presents differently in each and every person who suffers from it. There is no natural progression for Alzheimer's per se, it's just that they progressively get worse. According to the facts and figures for 2013 on the Alzheimer's Association's website, there are more than 5 million people with Alzheimer's disease. Someone develops Alzheimer's every 68 seconds. By 2050, the number of people living with Alzheimer's could triple. There are more than 15 million caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and other dementias who provide more than 17 billion hours of unpaid care. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. In 2013, an estimated 450,000 people living in the U.S. will die with Alzheimer's disease. My first chart shows that Alzheimer's is the only cause of death among the top 10 listed here in the U.S. that cannot be prevented, cured, or even slowed down. Since 2000, deaths from Alzheimer's disease have risen 68%, while deaths from other major diseases in these categories have all decreased. This chart shows the projected increase in prevalence from 2000 to 2100. These facts and figures make it clear that each one of us has a very good chance of dealing with this at some point in our lives. You may find it necessary to make decisions regarding your grandparents, parents, siblings, or a spouse at some point in your life. I'm going to attempt to address some of the positive and negative aspects associated with the decision to bring an aging family member into your home for full-time care. I will also address some of the situations that may make it apparent that it is time for your aging family member to move on to a professional care facility. For most of us, care facilities have a negative connotation in our minds. We have all heard horror stories on the news about nursing homes that have been charged with various forms of elder abuse. It's only natural for us to want to bring an aging family member into our home to care for them ourselves. This is a much easier decision when they are in the early stages of dementia and don't require assistance with their daily hygiene, for example. Having many people in the house to share in the necessary supervision of the person makes it easier on everyone living in the home. If one person was responsible for all the aspects of caregiving, it would become a much more daunting task. Multi-generational living conditions are nothing new. There are many cultures who choose to keep the young and old interacting with each other rather than moving them into a facility where they are out of sight and out of mind. This can be helpful if the children in the household are old enough to take care of themselves. They have positive memories of their grandparent before the dementia, and their interaction with their grandparent may very well aid in keeping them in a better mental state than if the children were not around. Since no two Alzheimer's disease or dementia patients progress at the same rate or in the same fashion, the negative aspects of having someone who suffers from this condition living in your household will vary from person to person. The severity of how the behavior is perceived in a negative fashion will also be based on who is on the receiving end of the behavior. Tolerance is an amazing thing. Some people have a tremendous amount of it, and others just don't. Some behaviors can just be ignored and others must be dealt with. For instance, there are many dementia patients who find the need to pick up every little scrap of something off the floor. This idea can mean absolutely nothing to the caregiver or can become a pet peeve. Other dementia patients will leave the house to go for a walk and not be able to find their way home. This is one behavior that should not be tolerated. That doesn't mean that they need to be locked up or anything like that, but it does mean that they require considerably more supervision than someone who doesn't do that. If you find that you are unable to stop this wandering behavior, it may be time to look into a facility that is designed to not let that happen. There are many things that may trigger when it would be time to consider moving your aging family member into a care facility for people with dementia. This would depend entirely upon the dynamic in your family as well as the severity of the symptoms of the patient. Some of these behaviors are exhibited to one extent or another from the very first day of diagnosis. It's really up to you and your family to decide how much you are able or willing to put up with. If you have found that you are unable to do many things that you love as a family because it is simply too difficult to include the dementia patient in your plans, it may be time. If the stress of dealing with the normal behaviors of the dementia patient on a daily basis is affecting the other interpersonal relationships in a negative way in the household, it may be time. If the family member becomes violent toward the other members of the household, it may be time. Today I presented some of the positive and negative aspects involved with bringing an aging family member with dementia into your household to live, along with some of the behaviors that might make it apparent that it's time to move them into a skilled nursing facility. Both of these decisions require a lot of forethought and discussion amongst the members of the household before they are undertaken. I hope you found this information useful.